Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Hello. This is the newest episode of TWIG. This is our newest regular flagship geek podcast. I am alone here this week because Birdman, he's not completely under the weather. We actually got up to record together, and we just both felt kind of if that makes any sense. He might tell the story when he's back, but he thinks some red peppers might have tried to kill him at some point, and that just made him not feel up to recording. I had a similar experience. Mine involved pesto, but that's a story for another day. Yes, I'm here, Alex the producer, Brother Alex, Uncle Alex, whatever you want to call me. I am here to record with you. I have my new studio setup, and by studio setup, I mean I have a new microphone with a cloud lifter thingamabobber, a new pod track recorder. I've got a laptop propped up on an old footstool in the living room on top of a book so it doesn't overheat. That is hooked up to the large 65-inch TV running at 720p, simply because the laptop's not powerful enough to output to 1080p or 4K, but I just needed there to read my articles. I am sitting in a lounge chair with a house robe on, like, that almost looks like a smoking jacket, like it's the 1950s. And I've got a wireless keyboard, a headset on. I'm using my PlayStation 5 3D Pulse headset plugged in with a auxiliary wired cable into my recorder, and I am put my feet up on top of a couple of brand new ottomans that I filled with RPG books so they wouldn't slide around. It is the most Frankenstein jank ridiculous setup, but it is so much more comfortable than sitting in a stiff old computer chair, or when I had some apartment troubles and I had to record from the bedroom. Trying to record while laying in bed holding a mic was not ideal. So I have this ridiculous setup that is much more comfortable, is good for longer sessions, and maybe in the future I can maybe hybrid it, or we might move it into another room. As far as what's been new with me, the last few weeks have been kind of crazy. We had Christmas. We came back from break right around the time I started having trouble at the apartment. The main water line that goes not into the apartment building, but that everything flushes and drains and everything through, that is the exit pipe that goes outside. Didn't know this. It was in between the wall of my bedroom and the bathroom that I have. And there was a pinhole, like we're talking like the smallest pinhole you could ever imagine, hole in it, and it had been misting, like very ever so slightly misting a little bit of water. And I didn't think anything of it at first, because obviously it takes a while for that to build up. Plus, heating in the building and the walls would evaporate that amount, and it wasn't enough. But it got to the point where enough started leaking that we were getting flooding in the bathroom right around middle of January. And I was like, come on, is it coming from outside? Because I've had this happen before at old places I lived where snow was plowed up against the side of the building, and the heat of the building would heat it up, and it got sucked in through the cracks or in through the cement walls, and maybe it was coming in there because it looked like it was pooling below the bathtub and coming out. And I was like, son of a bitch. But it got so much that we had to get a shop vac from the new owners of this building to, try to clean it up. All this was happening at the same time that my father, who I had move in with me a couple of years ago when he had a pretty major health scare. Like he almost died, and it was pretty quick. This is like 6 months before COVID hit. So luckily he was here. He was offered at the last second a job out of town that would involve a new apartment for him, where he would sometimes be here, but he might be going back and forth. But he had to take the job right away if he wanted it. So he took the job and moved out the same day the flooding started to happen. And like, he's got a lot of his stuff here still in storage that he hasn't had a chance to come back and get. So I eventually, I'm like, okay, he's going to pay his rent here for the next few months while he figures things out, if he's going to stay there, if the job works out. And if it does and he's gone, then I'm looking for probably maybe a little extra work, a day or two here or there. I cleared it with my doctor. I'm on disability, but I can work maybe 8 to 10 hours, maybe 8 to 12 as a shift from work from home stuff. I don't feel safe because of how immunocompromised I am in general to work at a retail setting or work in an office setting right now. But maybe get something from work from home that's just a supplement, because I can pay my rent, but we also have to be able to eat. And luckily the apartment I live in is fairly reasonable, much more reasonable. I came in right before all the prices started hiking up everywhere around. So, if I moved from here, I'd be paying 50% more for what I have. So it's like, you know what? I'm okay here. Once we had the plumber come in and fix the leak in the wall, they had to replace some pipe emergency stuff, which is better than me being underwater for sure. We have to wait until, I don't know, it might be a couple of weeks till they come and drywall the wall, because they had to put a hole in there to get at the pipes, and fix all that up. So stuff is sort of just in storage in the extra bedroom, which was my father's room there. And that's probably going to turn eventually into my office, where I'll have an extra bed in there for anybody that decides to stay over. I might have a sitting chair to read in or something. And then I'll move my computer desk and everything out of the living room into there, sort of soundproof the walls, set up some streaming stuff, because my brother got me a green screen setup and a ring light stuff for streaming, which could also double for work from home stuff. So there's exciting things coming. So, maybe get some extra work, have some peace and quiet, work here and live here on my own. It'd be nice to have that. Now, no roommates for a while. And if that doesn't work, with the market the way it is, once we get this place, we can paint the walls in that old bedroom there. I could rent it out if I wanted to somebody, and easily, recoup half the money that it costs for the apartment, if not a little more, because I would include the internet and everything. But that all happened right at once, and then right after the water got fixed, I went for my birthday out to visit family, and we had a snowmageddon, and I couldn't even come home. So during all this, I've had games for review, and that's sort of just been all encompassing. It's been a very, very busy, hectic, stress-inducing last 3 weeks or so. So I'm hopefully going to be getting back to completely normal starting now, or starting soon. This wasn't, again, really going to be a solo show, but Birdman, he's like, I'm not feeling 100%. Like, dude, you don't worry about this. This is an excuse for me to test out all my new equipment and all my new setups, and hopefully everything sounds clear. The new microphone, I've had to do some EQ stuff on there, because the old mic setup that I had was very good at noise isolation, but it also deepened a voice beyond. Like, I already have a deep voice, as you can hear, but it kind of it wasn't lo-fi, but it wasn't the best out there. This new setup is good, but I really have to tweak it to find the settings that work right. So this is going to be a bit of a learning process. And next week is the Valentine's Day weekend. So Birdman has requested, as he does every year, can I have it off? Yeah, of course you can have it off, buddy. So I'll be going solo next week, but he's going to have some reviews here for us. I think at least one he'll have for next week. As for what's out this week, Birdman has, and he sent it to me because he recorded it. It better be there. It better be ready. Birdman has, excuse me. Birdman has the Star Trek Adventures Gamemasters Guide. So that will be their second review here. The first review I'm going to include is of a couple new products from PDP Games. We also have they gave us a link you can click on to get a discount on their website, or you can enter a code TWIG10 and you get 10% off any purchase from their website. Our reviews from them are not like paid promotional reviews. We just get the products to review, but they said, hey, we've been reviewing a bunch of stuff with them in the past, the last couple of years. They said, would you guys like a discount or affiliate link for for your fans and listeners to maybe save a bit of money on them? And I said, yeah. We talked to Birdman. He goes, yeah, why not? Hey, it's they're not going to influence any of our reviews. It's just we've already been reviewing a whole bunch of them, and they said, other people already have these. Would you like them? Yeah, sure. So you'll hear that coming up. We've also got a review of Pokemon Arceus. That's something I worked on while I was actually away during the Snowmageddon. And it's not being mentioned in the show. I know he would have mentioned it, but over the next little bit, we're going to be having some content for Halo. And Birdman, I believe, has a few codes to give out for 3-month subscriptions to Game Pass Ultimate. And he will be detailing that over the next few episodes. And then later on this week, we'll have a prototype out and maybe a special that we're doing on Halo itself. And he'll mention that. So keep your ears ready. Keep your eyes on social media for that. And it's good. We're getting back to giving out contest items. It's been a little bit because we were worried about COVID with mailing stuff. It's been a while since we've done giveaways. But we've got some stuff to give away, starting with Halo Infinite and Game Pass Ultimate. So that's going to do it for as far as introductions. I think I've rambled on quite enough. We'll be back with a couple news stories in our regular news. But first, here is my review of a couple of brand new PDP products that are related to the Nintendo Switch OLED.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
It's a new year, and that means it's time for some new Nintendo Switch accessories from PDP. We have covered most of their new releases over the last couple of years. Sometimes it's brand new product launches, sometimes, as in the case here, they are additions to previous products with new color schemes or updates to their aesthetics, to coincide with other releases. So we actually received a box of review items that contain 4 items. We're going to cover 2 today, and we're going to talk about the other 2 probably in the middle of the week, or maybe on the next show. It's all going to depend on how our content comes up over the next few days. That being said, these are all products launched to coincide with the Nintendo Switch OLED that came out, that I have a system for, that I saved up for, that match the black and white aesthetic that the new Joy-Cons have with it. So the first 2 accessories we're going to talk about are the controllers, and then we'll go into the others next time. And there's 2 new controllers, one in the Rock Candy line that we've talked about before. That's the wired controller that is sort of like the standard bearer for like solid, good quality third-party controllers, as well as the Faceoff Deluxe Plus audio wired controller, and it has a 2-tone color scheme with black and white to match. We've talked about these in the past. These are sort of the upper echelon of wired controllers for the Nintendo Switch that are offered by a third party. The Rock Candy controller is this sort of frosted white color, and it's called frost white, but it really has like a frosted like when you look at your windows when it's really cold out. That's sort of the look. I think it's probably the sharpest looking controller out of the Rock Candy line. You know me, I'm not the biggest fan of like super bright neon or LED colors. I think they're fun occasionally, but as far as something I like to have on my shelf or I like to play with, I am more of a sleek, functional over flash sort of guy, and I find that this suits it quite well. I do like the design here. Functionality wise, it's the same as what's been released previously, just with a cooler aesthetic to match the brand new Switch OLED that came out. And you know, I plugged it into the new dock, tried it out that way. It works great. I mean, I can't say much more. Same with the Faceoff Deluxe Plus. The audio one, you know, allows you to plug your headphones into it, and it basically becomes a wired audio device, similar to how it's done with like PlayStation and Xbox. Only actually slightly higher quality, because when you plug in through a USB cable, you're not using Bluetooth. You're not losing any quality through compression that way. So it's pretty good. It's a way to do it, because you can't always have your headphones plugged in to a receiver or a television or to the switch on top. It's kind of a hazard having it plugged in when it's docked like that. This way, earbuds or anything that's close to you, or one of their own headphones, you can plug directly into the controller and work that way. And its two-tone design is black on the left, sort of with a almost like a forward slash or backslash divider between the color scheme, and the white on the right-hand side. Again, looks very sharp if you're looking for something that has audio capabilities to, you know, you don't have a big sound system, but you also want to have privacy in your home for your friends or family, and you still want to game maybe late into the night. This is something that you might want to look into, and it looks great on the shelf as well. And we've reviewed a bunch of other products for PDP in the past, so I'm actually going to include a link to their website that they provided us this time with a promo link for all of our listeners. You can click the link itself, or you can enter a code, which is TWIG, all capital letters, TWIG 10, to get a 10% discount on anything you purchase that way. No requirements. You know, we're not paid. This isn't a paid promotion. This is a review item, but they have given us an affiliate link for anybody that wants to check it out, and, you know, maybe receive a bit of a discount that way. And anything moving forward, that's probably going to be the promo code we have from them. So TWIG 10. TWIG 10, and you know, I'll be back talking about the other parts there. There is a deluxe case, and then there's a level 40 wired headset. I just didn't get a chance to check them out before I left on my little mini birthday vacation that I had earlier in the last week or so. So I would say these are refinements of what was already there. I think that every time they release a new color scheme for their controllers, they get more and more professional and almost first-party looking, even though this is a third-party company. And I'm very interested to see what they come up with next. And I was really hoping, like before these were announced, I was hoping that somebody was going to come up with a color scheme of accessories to match the new OLED, because when I got it, there was nothing available. There wasn't even like an official case from themselves, like from Nintendo, that even had that. So it's nice to see that we've got some working, you know, accessories from a reputable company that we know makes pretty decent products, and, you know, that has the right color scheme, and they're licensed third-party products. And again, if you want to check them out, there'll be a link in the description here to go to their website, and you can use promo code TWIG10 to get yourself a bit of a discount if you purchase.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek.
News.
Time for the news. And this week, Birdman had like 14 news stories ready to go, and I said, no. We try to keep it around 3 to 5 when we're doing discussions together. And this time I decided to trim it because it's just me. So I have a couple things. It was kind of fortuitous because the final thing will tie into an event that I was a part of. But moving forward, the big news, probably one of the biggest news of the week, not as big as the Activision Blizzard acquisition, But Sony is planning, or at least it has intent to, and has made the offer and it's been accepted for, the purchase of Bungie for $3.6 billion. Now, this says the Destiny studio will remain multi-platform and able to self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play. This story was on multiple websites, but first broke on gamesindustry.biz. And it says here, Sony Interactive Entertainment announced a deal to acquire Bungie for $3.6 billion in the latest in a string of big-ticket consolidation deals in the games industry. After the deal closes, Bungie will be an independent subsidiary of Sony Interactive Entertainment, run by a board of directors consisting of current CEO and chairman Pete Parsons and the rest of the studio's current management team. And there's been talk of this. You've probably heard it from other YouTubers and other podcasters and outlets. But this is a strategic play because there's upwards of 10 original IPs that are all in the realm of live service games that Bungie has been working on, in behind the scenes, that are coming out, that, when you start staggering that out, you realize Sony wants that to be on multiple platforms. They don't care what platforms it's on. Live service games are really the future of cross-platform play and cross-platform agnosticism, in that it doesn't really matter where you pick it up. You're going to find Sony-owned properties on Microsoft platforms and Microsoft platforms on Sony and so forth. When it comes to these types of games, they're not really story exclusives. They're the exclusives to be massively multi-played and also suck your money out of microtransactions and so forth and such. And that kind of money makes sense. They're apparently paying $1.2 billion or so of it in staff retention, which it's a double-edged sword that way. In one way, it's a cool incentive to stay, but it's also a band-aid of, well, if somebody really thought about leaving, this is like, it's money to you stay with us now and you get this money. I don't know. It seems a little, it's like a preemptive move. I get it, but at the same time, it is a little surprising that it's not going to be put under the Sony Studios banner, at least not for now. There's probably still some more purchases like this along the way, but I was not a fan of Destiny 2. I played Destiny 1 and liked aspects, didn't like some aspects. I have always felt, and I've gone back and played the original Bungie Halo games in the last 3 or 4 months, and I mean, maybe I'm controversial on this, but I don't think Bungie's that great of a studio. I don't think that their games are as good as people say they are. I think that in a bubble when some of them came out, they were important. I do think Halo 2 is really good, and I feel like it's the only good game they made. I know, I'm a horrible person for saying that, and I'm so totally wrong. It's just that's my personal opinion. That being said, I do know that they make money. And, sure, great. One thing that Sony needs is to be able to make money. So this is a good move for them. At the same time that this is happening, Sony had put out a couple of state of play showcases that is weird that they're not consolidated into one bigger showcase, and we haven't seen like a PlayStation experience or future of gaming experience or just a regular good state of play. They're these like random ones that are strategically placed for games that are coming out. One was for Gran Turismo 7, and as amazing as it looks, there's been some complaints like, oh, it's not ray traced the whole way through. Oh, eat it. It looks better than almost every game coming out. It has the same visual fidelity of like Microsoft's Flight Simulator, but isn't cloud-based. So eat it. It looks that good. It doesn't need ray tracing if it looks that good. Coolest aspect of that I saw in that big presentation they did was the new features they're using for music, where there's modes that play that as you play the music can be synced to the events that are happening. And it's similar in a way, like if this makes sense, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, when you're doing things in the world, like running towards something that could be dangerous, or the action you're doing on screen can affect how the music swells and what music is played and what instruments are brought into it and brought out and changes the mood of the music, and it can like tie it to certain cues. Like if you hit a brake, if you were to hit the brakes in your car and turn left, it might change the way the music sounds. That stuff is cool. And that is something I haven't seen done really. Some games started to do it. I think God of War was one of the first ones to really start doing that, but it was pretty much perfected as far as like really bringing it to the apex in Final Fantasy VII Remake. So if they can do that for this racing, and I didn't see anything about licensed music, but if they can license some stuff like Turbo and all that they did back in the PS2 era, if they get some really good licensed music, I know it's not going to play for streamers very well, but for the single player experience aspects, it will be a fantastic immersive experience. And then obviously have streamable music involved so that you can do it for races and so on. They also showed off, finally, the story and just how the game plays and what the game is like for Ghostwire Tokyo. And it looks good. It looks too spooky for me. I mean, it's an exclusive title. That is the last exclusive title they're going to get, or maybe one of the last titles they're going to get, period, from Bethesda. That looks like a Birdman game. I think he's going to be the one that probably ends up reviewing it. I might play it. I might watch it. I'm kind of scared by it, but they showed that off, and we're still sort of left wanting, what's coming later from them. Like, when are we getting another State of Play? What's with the PSVR 2? When is this information on the new, the new successor for PlayStation Now, or the multi-tiered level PlayStation Plus? No idea. I can tell you right now, honestly, we have not received any press emails regarding it from Sony or any of their partners. We don't know. For all we know, that the partners that talk to us don't even know yet. So it's going to be very interesting, but we're going to probably hear something in the next couple of weeks. I'd have to imagine so. Like, it just has to. There's been so, little. They basically skipped the Game Awards. We haven't heard really anything new other than those very specific State of Plays where it's just gaming showcases. There was the one for Horizon. There was the one for Gran Turismo now. There's the one for Ghostwire. We haven't really heard much from them since, September or end of summer. So, I mean, it's time. Same with Nintendo. So, we'll keep our eyes and ears out for it. And, moving on to our next story here, and it's actually going to be our final story, because I'm going to tie it into an event that I took, place in as well earlier this week, or actually earlier last week, depending on how this is recorded. We have, this is from Superhero Hype, Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, and Section 31 are still in development at Paramount Plus. Basically saying that these are shows that went sort of on the back burner, or we thought were canceled, that they're not. And what I'm tying this into, I'm not going to even read the article beyond that, is I had the opportunity, I was invited to a press screening event for some of the Paramount Plus programming that's coming in 2022. Now, this was mostly an American event. When I attended, I, as a Canadian outlet, wasn't allowed to ask questions. It was an observe and be a part of the presser so we could take notes, and we were able to listen to the audio and see what was happening on screen and be able to delineate the information to our listeners in Canada. There were some great question and answer stuff that happened with the Americans that were involved from the American outlets. So maybe in the future there'll be a Canadian press event where we can ask more things, because as it stands, Paramount Plus in Canada is cheaper than it is in the States. It's like 40 or 50% less, but there's a pretty lack of content from what I've seen. I did a trial a little while ago, and where there's 2,000 movies in the States, there's 40 here. A lot of that has to do with deals that were in place for the last couple of years with Netflix and Crave and other services in Canada. And as those deals come up, as their multi-year contracts come up with individual shows, they're going to revert and basically just get added to the service. So it's going to be slowly built up, and then it's going to be this big, robust service. Now, pretty much everything that is coming to America will be day and date coming to Canada of new shows moving forward. Any of the new productions, with the exception of Star Trek. The Star Trek franchise is still, I think, with Bell. I think Bell owns Crave. It's the Crave and the Space Channel, or CTV Sci-Fi, still have first run rights with the terrestrial cable. It's the only channel in the world that airs it terrestrially on cable. It's just part of an old deal they worked out with it. Whereas everywhere else, it's a completely streaming thing, which is kind of cool that we're still the destination for, cable Trek. But that being said, I can say they mentioned a few shows that were coming. I made a couple notes. There's a bunch of cool stuff, and we'll announce. But again, there was no confirmation on all of them, whether they were coming to Canada or not, except for a few. There is, with the announcement they made, there is a Frasier sequel show that piqued my interest. It's just going to be picking up where Frasier left off, but so many years later, with I guess as many cast returning as they can get. There is a urban cowboy show in production. A lot of them were either television adaptations of previous movies or sequels to previous shows, which some people might say is, it's like, oh, that's lazy programming. In some ways, maybe, in some ways not. I would be interested in a Frasier show. I'll want to check that out. And then there was some stuff about growth and certain programming they were getting in the States. And I think it was Pluto TV, which in Canada is very limited. So there's some stuff that didn't pertain to us directly, but Frasier's one to keep an eye out for. There's some other programming there. They've renewed 1883, which, by the way, I have seen that. That is I watched at least the first episode or two. That is a cool Western show, and it's really well done. We're talking, HBO, Netflix quality or better. They also renewed, what was it? Mayor of Kingstown. That's been getting a bunch of buzz. And then they, after that sort of that press event there was a bit of a break. We came back and there was a big showcase with some of the actors and the producers talking about The Offer. And The Offer is based on the true story of the behind-the-scenes troubled making of The Godfather. And it looks to be very cool. It's a miniseries just chronicling it. There were questions that were brought up, like, is this going to be something they could see moving forward with the other films or other films that have had troubled productions? They said that they were really focused on trying to get this out, and there was a trailer that dropped you can probably see on most websites now. It looks really good. I'm very interested in checking it out. And then the final, then there was the Halo panel. That was what we were initially interested in watching. And they had the cast on there. They were talking about how this was basically in production, off and on for almost 9 years. And it took almost 2 years of filming over in Europe to get it actually done. Now, that's obviously because of COVID restrictions and shutdowns and startups. And it's interesting to see how it's all coming together. The quality of the production looks really high. They mentioned that their showrunner is changing for season 2. Then they backtracked, saying that that's if season 2 gets picked up. I think it's pretty much a safe bet, but I mean, that things can change last minute. And then they said they had questions were asked about what their experiences were playing the games with some of the actors. And interestingly enough, none of the actors had ever played any Halo game prior to being put in production. Bokeem Woodbine was the only one that had experience with Halo, in that he said he was couch surfing in his early career when he really had no money, and he was at a friend's place, and he basically watched his friends play through Halo 1 story and Halo 2 completely. So he was familiar with it from a perspective of he knew the story, he just hadn't been a player, which I thought was interesting. And everybody else has given it a try or had their boyfriends or husbands play it. And it's pretty darn good. Like I think they're all psyched to be in the show. It looks like it's going to be interesting. They dropped the release date for it, which is coming up pretty soon, and that's one that's going to be available in the States and in Canada on the service. And then one that wasn't actually. What's interesting is wasn't actually included. Like, I was on the stream making my notes, and those were the two that we were invited to see, plus the initial network statistics and some new renewals that they mentioned at the beginning. There was something on their schedule which was for Star Trek Strange New Worlds. I had initially inquired, like, is there any information could we be on that panel? And we're told, well, it wasn't part of that initial Canadian thing because, I know that in the background it's like, oh, because Star Trek in Canada is handled by Bell's services, and and not through Paramount Plus itself, and it's not going to be on Paramount Plus, but it's day and date. Whatever happens on Paramount Plus happens on Crave and on the Space Channel or CTV Sci-Fi, whatever they rebranded it to. So I was like, okay, I'm making my notes, and as I'm making my notes, that presentation started, and I thought, okay, I'll stick around. If they're not going to kick me out of the stream, I'll make my notes. I won't talk about it until press releases have come out for it, which they have now, and the press releases are available in Canada for it. So I'm assuming I can talk about it now, so I'm going to. And I was very impressed. They brought in the cast, Anson Mount and everybody. They had Kurtzman on there. I have been very, very vocally critical of the direction that Star Trek has taken in how cynical, how emotionally draining it's become. And I'm not going to get too into it with it. Discovery. It's a very love or hate thing people have for it, and a lot of that is tied to Kurtzman's direction. Not direction as in like directing the show, but in his overall oversight and direction of it. And instead, Akiva Goldsman has sort of come in to take over this project, and it looks like they found a good balance between them. What they showcased and what they confirmed is it was asked point blank, and they were a little hesitant to answer, but then they really gave the go ahead to answer. It is Strange New Worlds is a purely episodic series. They're going back to their roots of everything that they used to do from the original series up to Enterprise, in that there might be a B or C plot that runs through the season, but every episode will be mostly self-contained, so you can watch it in almost any order you want and not feel like you've been left out of a serialized show. With every show that they've done in the last, since Discovery came out, it's been this hyper-serialized programming, which can be very compelling, but it does alienate the casual fan or somebody that wants to come in and just watch a 45-minute episode. So that's what they're doing. They're going back to that older style. And I was able to see, now this has been talked about online, so I can talk about it, but there was no video available for anybody to, you can't save it. There was no electronic programming kit or anything available. It hasn't been released as far as trailers go. But they released a key art for the poster for the show, but I was privy to watching a brand new exclusive sneak peek clip from what appears to be the first episode of the series, exclusive to the press, press eyes only. And I can describe what happened in it. It was Uhura's introduction to the show, being brought in for a dinner party, and how she meets the rest of the cast and crew of the show. Sorry. And what it showcased, more so than just introducing Uhura, was a very distinct change to the visual style of the show. It still has the color and vibrance that you get with all the Ultra HD stuff that they film now. But to give an example, in Discovery and Picard, everything is always in motion. Especially Discovery. Cameras always feel like they're spinning around the characters. Doesn't matter. There's never a scene that holds on somebody for their emotion. It's always moving. It's like MTV seizure-inducing clip of speed, like never more than 1 or 2 seconds for a shot. That's how it feels, right? And everything always, like I said, was spinning. And you can watch it. It's literally, the cameras are like going in a circle around the cast the whole time they're talking, individually when they're doing close-ups and when they're walking around. It can be almost dizzying and nauseating to some people. You get used to it, but it's always there. There was always a lot of lens flare, the very J.J. Abrams influence, with tons of lens flare, a blue filter that is like overpowering, where it's almost like there's a shift into the blue spectrum of light for almost everything. It can look cool for certain scenes, but it didn't have a very Star Trek feel or a very comfortable. Everything was always hectic, even in the scenes that were supposed to be calm, and the way it was lit and the way it was shot. Tons of like these over wide shots spinning and then super close ups, and there wasn't a lot of establishing or middle shots, and even the pace was always so fast, right? Well, with this 2 to 3 minute clip, it was more like Star Trek, like the movies that were the Next Generation movies, a little bit hipper, a little faster than Trek, TNG, Voyager, or even like Enterprise was and DS9, but it still has that feel. The color scheme, it's very vibrant. The blue filter is gone. There wasn't any lens flares in it. It had the emotion, like there was still like a very emotional scene happening, but the camera, instead of this fast movement or spinning around, it slowly tightens up from a middle establishing shot into a close up to give the emotion. It makes the cut when it needs to. We're looking at 10, 20 seconds, sometimes even before it cut to a different angle. It felt deliberate. It didn't feel slow. It didn't feel boring. It felt dynamic. It felt exciting. It felt compelling, and it had all the heart that it needed to. So it's sort of a blend of the new style and the old style, and that's very intriguing. I almost feel like that was a purposeful thing that they showed. Yes, it was a very emotional scene. It was very compelling. It also gave a very important backstory clip for Uhura, which had never been discussed in any of the previous movies or TV shows before. So we're getting some lore building here. At the same time, it almost felt like it was to showcase, hey, here's the visual style and aesthetic we're going for. And that was very welcome. And I hope that either by the time that this episode of our show comes out, or in the near future, that clip becomes available, because I think if you're somebody who has been put off by some of the way it was shot, or the content of the modern Star Trek shows have been, this might pull you in. And like it's not like, oh, those shows are terrible. I'm saying not every style is for everybody. I like that there's a diverse spectrum you can see now of their programming. So that's what I got to see there. That was a 4 eyes only press thing. It's been reported on a bunch of websites now with full descriptions of what happens in the scene. I'm not going to do that because it's already there. I just wanted to say my opinion on it, and I'm very interested to see where they move with this moving forward. They also did say, and one thing I noticed, the Section 31 and Starfleet Academy shows that were previously mentioned, yeah, they said they did mention that there's another animation thing in the works. And Kurtzman let out that there is another Trek show in development that's been greenlit that has not been talked about. Live action show. No details were allowed to be given, except for him saying that there is another show that's not been discussed before that is in production. So the Starfleet Academy, Section 31, maybe an animated show. I wasn't sure if that was considered to be something different, but for sure a third unannounced, never talked about show. So we'll hear about that probably in the next year, 6 months or more. Who knows? It wasn't just that it was in development. They said it was greenlit, that it's ready and they're getting ready to make it. It's like, okay, cool. Who knows what that is? I don't think he's talking out of his ass, because he said it and then some of the other people that were the producers were kind of quiet. Like, I don't know if they were supposed to say everything yet, but that was cool. I mean, and this happened last week, so I'm assuming it's cool to say. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the news. There's been a lot of other stuff happening, obviously, in the last week or so of gaming and movie and stuff. A lot of other people have talked about it, about those different things, especially when it's acquisitions and good things, bad things, games. The reason I wanted to sort of cut some of that out and talk about this is this was a specific event that I got firsthand knowledge. This isn't me, going and being like, oh, here's what's on the press release for this. I was there, amongst, the press, seeing the stuff firsthand. We were able to get an audio transcript for Birdman so he could hear and be on the same page so we could discuss before we went on the air here. And we've sort of came to a consensus of, what's good, what's bad, what's interesting. And, I just wanted to share what I was able to experience there. And I think it's going to be cool. Hopefully we see more coming forward and more coming soon. I did find out that I will have pre-screener access for the offer. There's a couple episodes already available, but like final press screeners are coming out later. So I'll be checking that out and probably giving my thoughts on that in the next couple of weeks before that show releases. And that is going to do it for the news. Before we go into our weird news, we've got a review, funny enough, about Star Trek, but this is the Star Trek Adventures RPG from Odysseus Gamemaster's Guide. Birdman, check that out, and you'll be able to hear about it here now.
You're the captain of this ship. You can't afford the luxury of being anything less than perfect. If you do, they lose faith, and you lose command.
But I'm not perfect. I've never captained a ship. I've never had a crew. What do I know?
That the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
So a good captain puts the needs of the crew before himself. Maybe I should be using these ears more than my mouth.
It is the only logical conclusion.
Greetings, Starfleet officers. It is I, Lieutenant Commander Birdman, here with this week's review here on the show as Alex takes command of the ship. And, we are taking a look at the Star Trek Adventures Gamemasters Guide coming to us from our friends over at Modifius. A review copy was provided to us. Okay, so running a Star Trek Adventures game is a little bit different than most other RPGs I've had a chance to run in my experience, because it's so different in the fact that it doesn't have to be a dungeon crawl type of combat adventure. It deals with a lot more social issues, the scientific investigation method, and basically it's different than most other RPGs, like different than Star Wars, where you don't hear about a lot of scientists in the New Republic, so to say. Not to say they don't exist, but you don't hear about them. It doesn't say political intrigue like, say, Dune, which can do political intrigue and, social conflict, or even something like, say, Alien, which can deal with technically all three, but you're always focused on fighting xenomorphs or maybe rogue combat synthetics or something along those lines. So Star Trek Adventures is one of those games that I'm very intimidated to run, because Star Trek has a very unique feel to how its television series and movies play out. While you could argue a movie like First Contact is super action heavy, but it also deals with themes of exploration, responsibility, and even Zefram Cochrane saying, I just want to make a lot of money rather than pioneering the human race into a new direction. So running Star Trek is a challenge in and of itself if you don't want to be fighting the Borg or the Hirogen or the Klingons week to week. How do you make things interesting? How do you bring a character like Q? Do you do a John Delancey? Do you do his son? Do you do a completely different set of Qs? Or do you maybe do the Entity from Skin of Evil? Or do you do, intrigue with the Romulan Senate? Do you deal with the fallout of the destruction of Romulus? Or even, could you run a comedy game like Lower Decks? And yes, and this book kind of gives you all the tools that you need to, in the regards that it explains it in, okay, how do you deal with this? And how do you deal with settings? How do you deal with players? And it's a lot of good, easy to understand advice for how you want to set up your games. It talks, well, do you want to run a game like Voyager, where you're far from home, far from resources, far from help? Do you want Deep Space Nine, where maybe you're only stuck in a central location? Maybe you have access to a warp-capable ship, maybe you don't. Are you a faraway colony? Are you operating a thing in a place like, say, the Shackleton Expanse, where you have access to resources, but still getting home is going to take a few weeks, even at high warp? That sort of thing. It also explains to you, how to integrate NPCs, different plots, stuff like that. Do you do the single-shot adventure you'd run at a convention? Do you do a season-long adventure that may be a bunch of sessions? Or do you do the epic-length campaign that we all dream of, which lasts a couple of years? And they talk about things from the original series, Enterprise, TNG, Voyager, DS9. They mention the movies there. They actually mention Lower Decks. They talk about Picard, and they talk about Discovery, which now has the Star Trek universe into, I think, 31 something or 32 something. I don't know. Either way, it's a damn long time. And they talk about how to integrate time travel, different ideas for campaigns. Could you do a time travel campaign? Could you do an alternate history? They even kind of give you ideas where if you pick up the player's guide, which I'm going to be reviewing in just a few weeks, how you could run a civilian game as well. Different eras of play, different major events, but it also talks to you not being so beholden to canon that you want to change things. I've had a long gestating idea for a Star Trek Adventures game that I haven't ran, so I'm not really going to detail it here should I want to run it. But it does give me a lot of good ideas. There are also a lot of mechanical things in here, like optional rules explaining threat and momentum, how to make NPCs more interesting, advanced combat rules, stuff like that here. Like, I really feel the optional rule stuff is interesting and good, but I think the advice for running the Star Trek Adventures experience is a much more valuable reason to pick this up. Because like I said, Star Trek Adventures and running the worlds of Star Trek, I feel in the truest sense of the series, is a different challenge for game masters that are used to dungeon crawls from like D&D and Pathfinder, Shadowrun, which is always a gig-based thing, or something along those lines. So can I recommend the Star Trek Adventures Game Master's Guide by Modiphius? Absolutely, because I think it provides valuable insight into what you need to do as a storyteller. It could even make you a better player if you want to read this as well, just kind of getting more into the mood and the zone as things are. So that's going to be my recommendation to the captain, that you pick up the Star Trek Adventures Game Master's Guide by Modiphius. So until next time, one to beam out.
But the question of justice has concerned me greatly of late. And I say to any creature who may be listening, there can be no justice so long as laws are absolute. Even life itself is an exercise in exceptions.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Ooh, time for the weird news. And we have just a couple stories here for you. There was, there was like 7 or 8 stories from Birdman. Some I don't think were super weird. They could have fit in with the regular news. Some were politically motivated, like they were funny, but I kept one of his for sure, and then I put in a couple that I found that were a little more new in that, as in like just reported on in the last little tiny bit. So we've got 3 stories here. They're going to go a little quick, but there's, some should put a smile on your face, and some are like, huh? So the first story here, brought to you by Birdman and globalnews.ca, is Princess Sleia Plowy McPlowface Marta Scoop Calgary snowplows get new names. So it says here, Mother Nature rolled out the white carpet for the new names of snowplows operated by the city of Calgary. Plowy McPlowface, Mr. Plow, and Frosty the Snowplow topped the list, with other submissions drawing inspiration from pop culture like You're a Blizzard, Harry, On Snow You Didn't, Snow Place Like Home, and Darth Blader. The city received nods with names like Marta Scoop, Calgary Snow Flames, and Calgary Plower, and names from other languages were selected, like, let me try to pronounce this here, Kunskoy, that's K, 2 O's with accents on them, Nsskoyi, that's a Blackfoot language word for snow-covered, as well as Siksopo, with SI''KSSOPO, which is Blackfoot for Chinook. And then there was La Chasse Neige, which is French for snow chaser. And let me see here. Rechschneeplug. Sorry, this is German. Maybe I should be able to get this. Rechschneeplug. No, Rechschneeplug, which is German for snowplow. Throughout November 2021, nearly 1,700 submissions from school-age children in and around Calgary were received, but only 78 names were selected to go on the city's snow removal equipment. We'd like to thank our students of all ages who helped us name our snowplows. We saw so many unique names and we couldn't use them all. We can tell the kids in our city are creative and have many interests, said Chris McGeechy, spokesperson for the city's roads department, said in a statement. It says here, The city is encouraging the snowplow interactions to continue. When it's safe to do so, try taking a photo of the names you see out on the road and tagging the photos with hashtag YYCPlow in your social media posts. A news release said residents can also track the names of the city's snowplows and 7-day snow clearing plan online. Here are all of the Calgary snowplow names. These are ones that are official and like put on the actual vehicles. Abominable Snowplow, Beluga, Big Friendly Plow, Blizzard Blaster, Blizzard of Oz, Blizzard Wizard. There's one that's just named Bob. Bonhomme de Neige, so you got a French one there. Brinestone Plowboy. Calgary Plower, Calgary Snowflames, Chinook, Chippy, Darth Blader, Double Trouble Shovel, Eiffel Plower, Everest, Fast and Furious, For Your Ice Only, Frostbite, Frosty the Snowplow, Frozone, Gordy Plow, Gritty Bang Bang, Icebreaker, Kaplow, Kunskoi, that's the snow-covered one with in the Blackfoot language. Lacherie, plow/blade. Then there was La Chasse Neige, which is snow chaser. Let It Snow. Lizard Snow Grabber Marta Scoop. Marshmallow, Melton John, Mittens the Plow. Monsieur Neige, which is Mr. Snow, My Fair Blady, Oh Snow You Didn't, Pickle, Plow Patrol, Plowabunga, Plower Power, Plowy McPlowface, Plowzilla, Polar Patroller, Princess Leia, Road Zamboni, Rocky Mountain Snowplow, Saltbertosaurus, Rex Schneeplug, which is snowplow in German, Skispoo, which is Chinook, Sir Snowzonaut, Sled Zeppelin, Slushy, Snow Problem, Snow Angel, Snowbuster, Snow Cone, Snow Destroyer, Snow Job Too Small, Snow Monster, Snow Place Like Home, Snow Begone Kenobi, Snowflake, Snowy McSnowface, Sparkles, Sprinkles, Super Truck, Susie Snowplow, Sweet Child O'Brien, the Penguin Plow, the Plowdypuss, Winter Sprinter, Wow Plow, You're a Blizzard Harry, and YYC Plowers. So wow, some of those are amazing. I wish my city would do that. Calgary is pretty big though, so that's neat. As far as our next story here, I found this one. This was brought to us by the Good News Network, and it says here, this is from a couple days ago. Ginger Cat is local star for stealing hundreds of toys and presenting them sweetly to neighbors. So this is a sweet but weird story. A cat burglar and klepto cat has stolen the hearts of Australians after becoming an internet celebrity for his relentless robbing of locals and their toys. Kay McCall and her husband were moving into a new apartment last year in Ferny Hills near Brisbane when they met a ginger cat who hopped over the fence looking for a head pat and chin scratches. It became an enjoyable daily encounter, but the visits continued. They noticed an accumulation of toys in their yard. It wasn't long before they caught him in the act. As it turns out, the orange visitor was bringing more than affection to his neighbors. McCall says he left in the yard several odd socks, a school T-shirt, and a lot of toys. It says here, eventually McCall tracked down the ginger cat's loving owners and established that no, it wasn't a vagabond and that it had a home nearby, but the family couldn't keep him from wandering off. And basically he had gone to all the neighbors' yards and was stealing stuff and bringing it to that one yard for them, which I think is kind of sweet. It's kind of funny. I had an outdoor cat that would do sometimes similar things. Like we would end up with cat toys in our shed, and I'm like, we didn't buy them. How did these get here? And we figured out that our two cats were the apex of the whole neighborhood. So they would go over to other people's yards where they had cats, and they would just steal their shit and take it and put it in our backyard. So it happens with the apex and like the alpha cats. And this was like 20 some odd years ago. And our final story here, this is brought to us by a CBS local channel. Is it CBS DFW channel 1121? Whatever this is. Where the hell is this located? I don't know. But it says 243 pounds of contraband bologna seized at Texas-Mexico border. It says here, so this is from El Paso. It says here that agricultural specialists assigned to the Paso del Norte and Isleta border crossings, both in El Paso, currently seized 243 pounds of prohibited pork bologna on two separate unrelated incidents, according to a news release from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. I kind of want that. It looks good. A lot of bologna. It says here, pork products have a potential to introduce foreign animal diseases that can have a devastating effect on the U.S. economy and to our agricultural industry, says Director of Field Operations Hector A. Mancha. We ask travelers to declare any items acquired abroad so we can prevent the introduction of potentially harmful products. They do that here in Canada too, even though what's funny is our products are of a higher quality than they are in the States. We have actually stricter pasteurization and like our food handling rules are actually a lot stricter than America. I've seen them, like you compare them, yet they'll do the same thing saying products from Canada that aren't approved, like, oh, you can't take it because it could be potentially bad for you. I mean, Mexico, I guess depending on where you go to, it's possible, but they have pretty high food standards too. But like ours are actually higher than the Americans, and they won't let us bring. It's because they want, it's a taxation thing. Just like how, well, it's a little different in Canada because we have certain laws. Our milk has to be double pasteurized, and same with our cheese products and that. And if you come from the States and you bring milk from the States, it's actually illegal to have American milk and cheese in Canada because American milk is only single pasteurized. So that's kind of funny. So it's illegal to like pure illegal to even have it. It's fully contraband, like banned in Canada. Yet technically, if you brought stuff from Canada to the States, it's actually better for you than the American food, but they'll do the same thing. I just thought this was kind of funny because it's like, can you imagine? It's like, why were you arrested? Why were you charged with? It's all baloney. But they showed pictures and it's just these giant tubes of bologna. Who knows? Maybe the quality isn't great, but like I did find that kind of funny there. They had hidden the bologna under bags of chips as well as like under the seats in the vehicle. They hid it like they would hide drugs, but it was not. It was cheap bologna. So apparently it was $1,000 fine for failure to declare the commercial quantities of bologna. It was seized and destroyed. And like by destroyed, I'd be like, do I get to eat any at work if I was working at Border Patrol? But no, I just find that kind of funny. I've always seen it's always like, it's the meat. You always get caught with meat coming up, but like 243 pounds is a fair amount of bologna to be caught with. Like that's a pretty big amount. I know I've heard of it before where people have tried to sneak in like spices or weird things. And I get that. But I do find it kind of funny. Bologna is already like the mystery meat of everything. So, I mean, there should be a way to test it. And apparently if they had declared it, they would have, even then they still would have destroyed it because certain meats are prohibited. But yeah, so I guess with the cost of food rising so much now, people are resorting to trying to smuggle meat into America from outside of it. Maybe, what's next? Are people going to like start to smuggle ramen in? Contraband ramen. Who knows? It could happen. But that's going to do it for our weird news. We're going to take a bit of a break here and go to my review of Pokemon Arceus. And then we're going to come back at the end and I'll just send us off with what's coming up on our programming for our show. So without further ado, here is my review of Pokemon Arceus.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Shortly before I went away to visit my family for my birthday, which ended up being a 5-day visit instead of a 1 to 2 day, simply because we had the Snowmageddon 2.0, I received a review copy from our friends at Nintendo of Pokemon Arceus. And luckily I was able to, load it up onto my Switch OLED and bring it with me for the trip. And I had plenty of time to play while I was there, watching the 2 feet of snow fall over the course of a couple of days. And now that I've had enough time, I've come home, I've decompressed, I've completed pretty much the main storyline. I haven't collected everything. I'm just going to share some of my thoughts on it. It is, I'll be quite frank, I'll be honest, it is a lot better than I was expecting. I was very nervous going into this game. The trailers for it looked a little iffy, not in the content, but I was worried about performance. And that's because all the trailers had shown it to be kind of janky. The frame rate was dipping in the trailers. It looked really rough. It looked like the Switch wasn't ready to handle it. I don't know. I thought it was maybe a compression issue with the trailers, but I saw multiple sources on multiple TVs and devices. I don't know if it was an encode or something, or maybe just the build they were using. But I'll be honest, it wasn't representative of what the actual game was like, because playing the actual game, I was getting a pretty smooth frame rate. I was playing it almost entirely portable. I'm assuming it might be a little different playing it docked, but I didn't have my dock with me. I also wanted to play it with the OLED screen exclusively because, oh my gosh, it looks so much better on an OLED screen. Just the colors popping so much, and it just, the resolution of the assets looks so much better at that size for it personally. Audio-wise, I didn't encounter any stutters or issues. It was charming. The music was great. Load time's pretty decent, considering, I have it installed to a pretty good micro SD card internally. As far as the gameplay loop, you've probably heard it by now, but it is different than a regular Pokemon game. It is open world. It's not as Breath of the Wildy as a lot of people were saying. You go out in the field, you see the Pokemon around you, you throw balls at them to catch them, or you throw a Pokemon out to battle them, then hopefully catch them. It follows very similar physics and mechanics to previous Pokemon games, meaning the harder to catch Pokemon, you're going to have to weaken them down to a very sliver of health, or put them to sleep, or use a specialized ball. And then from there, hopefully you catch them. There's the mega-sized Pokemon roaming the field. There's the shiny and hard-to-get ones. There's boss battles. There's a bunch of stuff here. The loop is you go back to your main town. Some parts of it unlock as it grows. You take on extra side quests and missions that can give you power-ups. You can go basically at your own heart's content and just explore. Now, when your Pokemon faint and you don't have enough in battle anymore, you can actually get, not really a game over, but Pokemon can attack you in the field, and after so many hits, especially from the larger Pokemon, you will actually pass out, and you'll either lose some items or you can reset. And interestingly enough, if you're into one of the major boss battles, which furthers the storyline, and you die, or faint, in quotes, it will actually let you continue from where you were without any penalty. It'll actually remove the health points and let you continue from where you were pretty much indefinitely. So you will be able to pass no matter how many times you fail at it if you're just having trouble. So, there's a reward personally for, doing well and doing it without having to retry, but it's not punishing. This is a very scalable, very well-designed difficulty curve, especially since there's going to be a lot of kids playing this. Now, there are a couple points in the game where you can get through the main story without having to catch too many Pokemon if you just want to see what happens, but there is a sort of breaking point about 50 to 70% of the way through where you must reach a certain level by collecting and researching and getting more information on the Pokemon and earning so many badges before it will let you continue. So, you can't just get away by doing the bare minimum. You are going to have to explore, but you don't have to do everything. So I like that it's robust like this, that you can sort of go at your own pace. It is a very chill game in that aspect, that you can just play, 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there. You can play 5 minutes. You can play 5 hours if you want to. The story is a little darker and a little more involved than previous Pokemon games. I like the way this is going. If this became the mainline franchise, the way that it was played, it would be cool. But at the same time, I do kind of like that we have multiple Pokemon titles with multiple playstyles coming out. So I think this did a pretty good job of showing us what Pokemon can be like maybe in the future, or where this line will go in the future. It is sort of like a hybrid between the Let's Go games and the mainline RPG games. I found the difficulty to be a little harder than Sword and Shield, but that's good. I also found it to be less, even though there's more repetitive in what you're doing in the gameplay loop, it didn't feel as tired, if that makes any sense, as the previous loop. Like Pokemon, say what you will, you have your diehard fans, it had been getting a little stale in the last few generations because nothing really new had been introduced. And this might be the kick in the pants that the Pokemon franchise needs. And it's obviously not going to be a sleeper. It's a Pokemon title. But I think if you're somebody who's been away from Pokemon for a while, like it just didn't interest you, this might be something to pull you back in. You might want to check it out.
Those magnificent bastards! Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
And that is going to do it for the show this week. What do we have coming up for you? Well, as of this recording, I am working on editing and putting together and scheduling brand new episodes of Aaron and Darlene's Earth versus Soup. So we've got I'll probably schedule the next couple of weeks worth, but we've got enough shows probably to take us out into, sometime in April or May, because they are just podcast machines. And those are still going to come every Tuesday and Thursday, as long as I don't forget to edit and schedule them. We also will be having the ongoing shows of Nerd to the Third Power. Right now they're finishing up their run of the Fools Who Ride Dreamstone run that they did with Birdman, recording as the DM of their Dungeons and Dragons game. Those we're putting out on Saturdays whenever we need extra content there. Like we missed a couple recording dates for our Stargate show. One was an editing snafu that we had to go back and re-edit one, so that's coming soon. And then there was some scheduling conflicts with people's work schedules and just not being able to actually meet up on time. We've rectified that by changing our recording date. So as we've got a couple episodes in the can of that's going to start coming on Saturdays. This we're actually going to be recording this week another couple episodes. So we'll have 4 or 5 hours of the campaign ready to go over the next few weeks. But this coming Saturday, we are going to be putting out what we recorded in place of one of the episodes we were able to do, which is a new prototype on what we see in, as of the recording of this week, what we see happening in gaming in 2022, what we think about the games. Like we go through one by one sort of through the major releases coming that have confirmed dates in the first quarter and so on, as well as ending on our predictions, 3 predictions each of what we think and hope is going to happen during this year. So that was with me, Birdman, and Ken was on because we thought he was been up on the up and up and knows a lot of what's coming too, and we wanted to get a third opinion on some of these games that are coming out, so that it's not just the Birdman and Alex echo chamber. Now, as far as what else is coming this week, as long as things go according to plan, Birdman has an interview that he's recording, I think, for Halo, and we'll have our Halo prototype maybe this week. It should be out before our other prototype. If not, we'll see. as well as we're finishing up the omnibus episodes of the previous Cambridge Chronicles runs that we did a couple of years ago that led into us coming back with our Stargate show. Those have been releasing on Sundays. Once those last couple episodes clear up, I believe I have, don't know if I've edited it, it's been a while. I have the lost season, random episodes, bits and pieces from a few episodes that we recorded for a season 2 of the Cambridge Chronicles that didn't actually happen. As in, we recorded a couple episodes and then had to scrap the project for various reasons and reboot with the version that we did that was the very truncated attempt at doing Twitch streaming with it, and that fell apart too. So it's funny. It's the lost half season or the lost part season. Never been heard. Birdman has never heard those episodes. Neither has anybody else until I went in and grabbed them and found them in a recovered hidden archive within a trash bin. Like there's a story behind all that. But like we thought this audio was completely lost. I did as minimal editing as possible to the point where every blooper, everything is kept in. It's just the raw audio slapped on with the title track for it. You're going to hear it as we recorded it, basically. And it's a rare insight into a completely unedited show where there's nothing done to it. At the same time, I haven't even heard it back completely. Nobody has, which is fun. So we're going to be releasing that on a following Sunday, and we're getting back. We figured out a schedule to get Sunday Funnies recorded. So once that's completed, we'll start having Sunday Funnies again. Probably record them in batches so that we won't have gaps when there's problems with getting together to record. So they might record 2 or 3 episodes at a time. So we have 2 or 3 months worth of content that way. Then we also plan on getting back to our loose cannon and future imperfect programming. We're going to figure that out over the next couple of weeks, and we'll be launching it. It's a little later than we had wanted to, but it's just been so hectic and busy with stuff going on personal life wise that we couldn't find the time to just do it. We needed to decompress. So we've got that stuff coming. The Valentine's weekend issue of our podcast will be a solo affair with me with some little clips and segments from Birdman put in as well. And then we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming the following week. And that is going to do it. I am done out of here. I'm going to stop this recording. I'm going to go check on my spaghetti sauce that's been in the slow cooker because it smells like it's starting to not burn but boil up, and I want to stir it up and get that ready for when I have dinner and catch up on some of the review stuff I got to do. So we're going to stop here. I'm going to edit this later. It's going to be out in the morning, and hopefully you've enjoyed this. And if you have any feedback for the show, you can hit us up at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Hit me up at alex@thisweekingeek.net. Hit up our socials, This Week in Geek on Facebook, This Week in Geek on Twitter. We have Instagram. I don't know if we use it as often as we should. We really should. But you can hit us up there. You can hit up Birdman and just, send us a message if you have any feedback. We will be running contests, as I said earlier. Birdman has a contest running to get some free game, I think 3-month passes for Game Pass Ultimate. You'll hear more about that in the upcoming episode. Also, remember, if you are going to pick up anything from PDP Gaming, if you want to get a discount, you can either use the link in the show description or use TWIG10 as the promo code to get yourself 10% off any products purchased from PDP Gaming on their website. So that's it. I will talk to everybody later. Alex out.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.